Okay. Action! When this boat's finished, it's going to really feel like a spaceship.
So this will be the future. All this fancy tech is really for performance analysis.
So we're always keeping our eyes out and looking for the new technologies that are out there.
But if the sailors can't use it, then it's useless.
You have all these feedbacks which are quite impressive. They shake your whole body and you think your teeth will fall out. Never seen anything like that in my entire life of many years of sailing. We still sail in a very simple manual way. We have to move the sails by hand. We have to move them up and down and furl them by hand. And we do that with the coffee grinder and with the ropes and the winches. All this remains mechanical by rule. The tech plays a role for like positioning, weather, understanding where we want to go in terms of strategy, and the autopilot. It remains a totally natural sport powered by the wind and by muscles.
We need technology in a boat like an IMOCA because there's moments when you're only standing on your own, and it's very difficult to have any off time when you need to sleep. So with a technology that allows us to essentially have a second sailor on board with all the autopilot systems.
Or a sort of a crew member that's never going to sleep.
In this era of innovations, the boat is no longer just carbon fiber and sails. It evolves. It becomes an organism, another crew member. To race at peak performance, technology can't just be a tool. It has to be alive.
Getting the sailors to tell us as much as possible about how they feel to then turn that into the autopilot system is actually really, really difficult, because the sailors have such a specific and fine tuning of exactly how they feel the boat.
The brain of the boat is the autopilot. It doesn't just steer, it anticipates, processing 1,000 micro adjustments every second to keep us performing well. But a brain needs knowledge. The polars and routing software are its memory.
We're using overlays now in our autopilots to make the boat find certain drive modes, and not only like a fixed compass or a fixed angle to the wind.
We have lots of sensors on board. You've got your boat speed, you've got your heel, you've got your wind angle, you've got your wind speed. Being able to understand all the data metrics from the boat through the visual displays allows you to understand how the boat is behaving.
Malizia 4, I would say, really has a much more bigger drive of weight. We looked at Malizia 3 and we spoke a lot with Boris and Will, and how do we improve that? And the big push from Boris and Will was weight. The big challenges of new build electronically are trying to reduce weight. You try and do something that the competition is not doing, but then also trying to make sure that the boat is usable. We can do lots and lots of stuff with the boat to make it really, really cool and forward thinking. But if the sailors can't use it, then it's useless. The way we work around the race for weight on the boat is that we always try and make sure that components are close to each other. So for example, the batteries are really close to the electric motor because the cables there are super heavy. So we try and reduce those lengths as much as possible. I wouldn't say there's a limit on the amount of tech we can have on board. I mean, you're asking an electrician, but if we think that it's not really necessary, we could have it for training and then remove it for racing.
Normally simplicity equals weight savings.
The boat has a skin, a nervous system of fiber optic sensors. It feels the strain on the mast and the lift on the foils. It tells us when to push, and it screams when we've gone too far.
We really tried to measure absolutely everything in the boat, and we actually went a little bit too far in that sense. We had a bit too much data coming into us and took us away from sort of the core elements of sailing, of just focusing on making the boat go as fast as possible. So
as soon as you start to go more than 20 or 25 knots, it's very hard to sense much about the boat on feeling.
If you exceed the max speed of your foil, it cavitates and it rattles.
But so to know whether the boat's actually going to explode, what the behavior is and how to change your settings, you need to rely on these sensors that are all over the boat.
We need all these different sensors because we're trying to achieve different things. So for example, with the autopilot, we have to have wind sensors, we have to have speed sensors, because the autopilot needs that information to actually drive. But then we have performance sensors
So we have fiber optics that are monitoring the structure of the boat, and we have water sensors that measure if there's water around the boat. So if you look at a bigger picture sense, we also have load cells on all the rigging. And the other one that's quite useful is how much load is in the pilot ram. So how much force it's required to move the rudders. So if you think about the foils are lifting the boat up, the rig is tipping the boat over and creating all the drive force. And then the pilot ram and the rudders are steering the boat. And so those are the three primary areas that we look at to know if the boat's...
We are partnering now with IFM, a German tech company, and they are building industrial sensors that are very lightweight, yet robust, and we hope to get good data from that here on board. We use it at the beginning to see, for example, the precise filling of water ballast. And it's not easy to do. The water slushing around in the water ballast tank.
So traditional techniques of using a transducer that measures the height of the water from the top doesn't work so accurately. So this allows us to essentially measure the weight of the water in the tank. And it could potentially help the sailors get the right amount of water. And in some cases, this could mean that you're sailing the boat 100 or 200 kilos lighter with less water, but still the effect you need. And it can be a very big performance gain.
And we need to be pretty precise to know how to trim the boat so that we don't wheelie while foiling, that we don't tip with the nose down. But we will also see more about the attitude of the boat from specific radars we get from IFN.
The other area that we see we can have a big gain is understanding the ride height of the boat. And IFM has developed a radar sensor that measures both distance and speed. So we can put this on the bow, and it can give us the height of the boat off the water, even with tons of spray around and in a very aggressive environment, it can still give us this value. And it also can give us the approaching speed of the water. There's some potential there to have a big impact on performance.
It's really important during the launch, we set up fiber optics correctly. So when we start training, we know where the limits of the boat are.
It's a really big job on the electronics side to design the system, how we integrate it and use it. And then the physical installation for the team that are actually putting it all in is a huge task.
A lot of it is from scratch. We've designed the brand new system from the ground up. We've used some ideas from Malizia 3, but mostly it's a brand new system with a lot of few fun little additions.
There's an incredible amount of slamming going on. The G-forces that a lot of the electronics go through is sometimes not really what it's built to withstand. So we have to really think outside the box of how we can make everything waterproof, how we can make it withstand the aggressive winds. When we first start with a boat like this, you start with the baseline, I would say. That's all the heavy cables for the batteries, for the generator, for the Malabo engine. Yes, I do everything. No, but the boat is 60 foot. So we're running cables forward, backwards, so, upwards of 300 feet of cable. We add systems on board to help the sailors perform. We do that with alarms as well. So we do have an upper limit on this boat where we know, okay, right, you're pushing it hard. When the sailors start hitting that point, there are alarms that will start going off. Now that's up to the sailors whether they want to listen to those alarms or they want to keep pushing. But yeah, we do know from a design standpoint and also electronically with the batteries and the systems on board, how hard you can push the boat. This boat is now going to be more and more internal, and you really cannot see as much as you used to in the past.
Collisions on board is obviously a really important topic. We have a few systems which are helping us prevent them. Primarily the AIS unit. It's sending out a radio signal to other vessels, which is telling them of our position and our speed and heading. But of course, there's things out there which aren't on the AIS. So we've got a few other systems. We've got the radar as well, the B&G radar on board Malizia, and that's always been like the backbone of our reliability on board. And then also we're going to have the CAI on board.
CAI is a camera on the top of the mast. Helps us to know of any oncoming obstacles that are in front of us.
And you can actually overlay Oscar onto radar and AIS on top as well. So you can have a single place where you can see all three systems on top of each other.
It has two options. It can either just set an alarm and the sailors will be notified, or it also has a camera system that you can actually see.
And that's really our image, our eye looking from the top of the mast. And
It's there to sort of be as an extra set of eyes that really helps you to see what's coming.
Through the fog in the pitch black night, the radar acts as our eyes. It sees what we cannot, piercing through the spray to find the path forward.
having that technology there to reassure us that there's nothing in front of us is really important. But you really have to know how to use it and understand what it's telling you to fully be able to exploit it.
The biggest consumer on the boat is definitely the rechargeable coffee machine. That's always the worst thing. The autopilot is quite a big consumer on board. Big goal we have at the moment as well is to really reduce the consumption of everything on this boat. In the IMOCA, there's a new rule coming in, which will mean that we really have to reduce the consumption as much as possible. So if we can make the pilot more efficient, we use less fuel, and then overall that's a win-win.
But this body does more than just race. Through the ocean pack, the boat has lungs. It breathes the sea, measuring the CO2 and salt, turning our quest for speed into a mission for the planet.
The ocean pack is always on board. It's a very essential part of Malizia and of the whole program.
Malizia a toujours choisi d'avoir des instruments scientifiques à bord, et ce on-pack, c'est un instrument qui apporte énormément d'informations intéressantes pour les scientifiques. Après, l'impact est important parce que déjà l'installation de ce système qui demande une arrivée et une sortie d'eau de mer sur un bateau qui, je le rappelle, vole quand même au-dessus de l'eau. C'est pas toujours simple d'aller récupérer de l'eau. Il faut pas que ça se désamorce. Sur une installation globale, en comptant donc l'Ocean Pack plus les supports, plus toutes les parties de pompe, de traitement d'eau, etc., à environ 80 kg. Donc c'est comme avoir une personne en plus à bord. C'est pas négligeable.
But we always try and make sure that it doesn't affect the performance of the boat. So normally the ocean pack is on its own separate system.
It's scary, all of these electronics here, no?
I think what he
No, never. The boat was perfect. Well, who do I throw under the bus here? If we have a problem on board with a screen just turning off or another issue, we normally just start with good old classic turn it on and off. But then if it's more serious, then we have to have a longer conversation with the sailors of exactly where the problem might be.
You could take the boat out in a blackout condition, but it's probably going to be navionics on your phone. It's not going to be so easy. You're definitely not performing.
I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Then a thunder lightning hit so close that immediately my screen here was flashing, playing and going black, and the pilot going off, all the instruments going off, all the alarms coming on, the boat jibing instantly, lying flat on the water, a wind increasing, more thunder, more lightning. I think today the sea showed me the teeth.
Yeah, for Malizia 4, the most exciting bit I think is going to be the cockpit, where the screens are, the way they're being set up, the way you can sit and see screens. I think it's going to be a really cool setup at the end.
Deep in the hull, the generator is the heart. It beats with a steady rhythm, pumping life through the veins of the boat. That lifeblood is our energy, stored in the batteries, waiting to be used when the pressure mounts.
First of all, why does a race boat have a motor? It's class rule. You cannot sail these boats without electricity. You need electricity, so you need to save energy. And with the 60 liters, you need to get the most out of that. And then we have hydro generators and solar, but sometimes it just doesn't work. If there's no wind and rain at the same time, then you need a diesel generator.
We work with Fisher Panda and Malabo. So Malabo make the motor to drive the propeller for propulsion, and Fisher Panda produce the generator that we use on board. We looked for quite a while to find a generator that was as light as possible and as efficient as possible and kind of met the power requirements that we needed on board.
Our study says clearly that the best thing is a hybrid system with an electric propulsion and a diesel generator.
The electric motor is using energy from batteries and from a generator, a diesel-powered generator, when it needs more power than what the batteries alone can provide.
This setup is that performant because in a Vendée Globe scenario with 1 liter of fuel, it allows you to produce twice as much electricity than the normal setup. Taking less fuel would be one option, it's less weight, but already the Vendée Globe rule obliges us to only take 60 liters on the entire Vendée Globe. So this will be really hard to achieve for all of us, and therefore we are all pushing for the most efficient system.
So the process that we sort of go through when we have all these new systems and technologies on the boat it's really about testing. You know, we do as much as we can before the boat's on the water. The first weeks of sailing, we have to go through a really long checklist of getting everything set up and calibrated, and some of these things, for example, wind sensors, these doesn't happen overnight.
One of the beautiful things in our sport is that it's still a lot of the feel is important. You could not only say by numbers, you also need to get an understanding, a feeling for the boat. And sometimes you just feel, it doesn't feel right, something, what should I change? And you just try things.
I think at the start, you're more dependent on building a good number system, so the good polar reference and data matrix. And then after a while, I think Boris and will start to understand the boat better and know when they're lying down in their bunk and go, oh, that noise is different, or the boat feels slow, or we're heeling too much. And
to refine it can take years. Say in the previous boat, after 4 years now, we found some big tweaks to it just at the end.